What's going on? In this video, I'll be comparing the Nintendo Switch 2 with the Nintendo Switch OLED. Let's get right into it. Let's start off with the pricing. The Switch OLED, released on October 8, 2021, you can find for anywhere between $250 to $350, while the Switch 2, released on June 5, 2025, has a price tag of $449. Next, let's talk about the design and display. The Switch OLED has a 7-inch 60Hz 720p OLED display, while the Switch 2 has a bigger 7.9-inch 120Hz LCD display with HDR. Both displays look good, but I prefer the OLED. I think it has a slightly more natural colors and better viewing angles, but the Switch 2 screen still looks amazing. Similar layout here, you can see the Switch 2 has bigger ventilation cutouts with its active cooling with built-in fans. They both have a Type-C port on the bottom, while the Switch 2 has an additional Type-C port on the top and a built-in microphone. With a new design, attaching and detaching the Joy-Cons are also different. On the Switch OLED, it has the slide-in rails like on the first Switch, while the Switch 2 has a more modern magnetic snap-on system with improved alignment. This makes attaching and detaching the Joy-Cons a breeze. It's much faster and easier now. With this new attachment mechanism, the Joy-Con 2 also feel a bit more stable when attached to the Switch 2 compared to the flimsy feeling of the Switch OLED's Joy-Cons. As for ergonomics, the Switch 2 has bigger Joy-Cons compared to the Switch OLED. The Switch OLED Joy-Cons has a traditional layout that feels cramped at times, while the refined layout of the Switch 2 has slightly larger buttons and spacing, reducing fatigue for longer, more comfortable playing sessions. The Switch 2's Joy-Cons also allows you to use the Joy-Con 2 controllers as a mouse, enabling you to interact with the system's home menu and navigating games that support mouse controls. So you can play Cyberpunk or, games that support it, like as if you were playing with a mouse. It also has a new C button for voice chat, so now you can talk to your friends with the built-in microphone and with webcam support, plus screen sharing. I also like how the cutouts for the Joy-Con 2s on the Switch 2s are color-coded. This should make it easier for new players to know where to put their Joy-Cons. Let's turn the brightness up all the way, and as you can see, they both get pretty bright. The Switch 2 has a peak brightness of 450 nits, while the Switch OLED has a peak brightness of around 343 nits. Both get bright enough to use indoors and outdoors, but the Switch 2 is a bit brighter. Side by side here, I really couldn't tell the difference as much, but yeah, the Switch 2 is a bit brighter. As the Switch OLED is a 720p display and the Switch 2 is a 1080p display, if we take a close look at these two displays, you can see here, right now looking at the Switch OLED's display, how the sharpness looks, and keep an eye on the percent sign. And now taking a look at the Switch 2's display, you can see it's sharper. In terms of specs, the Switch OLED has custom NVIDIA Tegra X1 processor, while the Switch 2 has a custom NVIDIA Tegra T239 processor with DLSS and ray tracing support. For memory, the Switch OLED has 4GB of LPDDR4X for RAM, and the Switch 2 has 12GB of LPDDR5X for RAM. Storage-wise, the Switch OLED has 64GB of storage, while the Switch 2 comes with 256GB of storage. The Switch OLED supports microSD cards, while the Switch 2 supports microSD Express cards. The Switch OLED has Wi-Fi 5, and the Switch 2 has Wi-Fi 6. While the Switch OLED has Bluetooth 4.1, the Switch 2 has Bluetooth 5.2. The kickstands on the back have different designs, but both are functional and support the console at a similar viewing angle. As for the battery life, the Switch OLED has a 4310 mAh battery, while the Switch 2 has a 5220 mAh battery. The Switch OLED is rated to last up to 4.5 hours, all the way up to 9 hours, while the Switch 2 is rated to last up to 2 hours, all the way up to 6.5 hours. So basically, the Switch OLED has better battery life than the Switch 2 because it uses less powerful hardware that consumes less energy. The OLED runs older, more efficient games on a lower power chip, while the Switch 2 is designed for next-gen performance, which demands more from the CPU, GPU, and display, thus draining the battery faster. Here's a quick comparison of the Switches being in docked mode. So this right here is the Switch OLED. As you can see, the game looks great. It's playing in 4K. Well, the resolution was set to 4K. And then now let's take a look at the Switch OLED's docked mode. And here it also looks great. The resolution is set to 1080p here. And yeah, games look great here as well. Taking a look at the Joy-Con grips, they are both comfortable, but I will have to give the slight edge to the Switch 2 here with its bigger, more ergonomic design. It's just more comfortable to hold. Both come with Type-C charging adapters. The Switch OLED has a non-detachable 39-watt charger, while the Switch 2 has a detachable 60-watt charger. Here are the docks, similar size here, but you can clearly tell which is which. The Switch 2 dock has active cooling fan and supports up to 4K at 60Hz with DLSS upscaling and 120Hz at 1080p or 1440p, while the Switch OLED supports up to 1080p at 60Hz, and for ports, they have the same amount of ports here. Lastly, the speakers. Both consoles have respectable speakers for their size. The Switch 2's is slightly fuller sounding, but other than that, they both sound good for casual gaming sessions. Okay, so overall, if you're choosing between the Switch OLED or the Switch 2, I would say choose the Switch OLED if you're looking for a more affordable option with a vibrant OLED display and a solid performance for casual gaming. Then I'd say opt out for the Nintendo Switch 2 if you desire cutting-edge graphics, enhanced multiplayer features, and a more immersive gaming experience, making it a more future-proof choice for dedicated gamers.